This is the Rich Dad Radio Show. The good news and bad news about money. Here's Robert Kiyosaki.
Hello, Robert. Hello, it's Robert Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad Radio Show, the good news and bad news about money. And today we have a special guest, like we always do have special guests. He is a longtime favorite of mine personally. It's the first time I've been face-to-face or Zoom-to-Zoom with him. And he has a lot of fans here on Rich Dad. And so it's really nice to have Gerald Celente here. He's the founder, director of the Trends Research Institute, and publisher of the Weekly Trends Journal magazine, which I highly recommend everybody get. And the reason I love Gerald so much is you don't have to worry where he's at. You know, he will tell you, he doesn't sit on the fence. He will tell you exactly where he's at. He reads the trends. He tells you exactly where it's at for him. So it's going to be an exciting show, and our discussion today will be: inflation is real, or is it real? I mean, that's a big discussion I'm listening to all the time right now. Some people say it's real, and some people say it's going to deflation. So that's kind of a very important discussion. Any comments, Kim?
Yeah, I'm so looking forward to talking with Gerald because, usually, we love to follow trends, and trends tell you the story. Trends tell you the future, and most trend people are quite soft-spoken and kind of just give you the facts, but not Gerald. Gerald will tell it like it is, and I love his point of view, and I love his outspokenness. And we at the Rich Dad Radio Show, we want to just tell people where it's at. We want to no holds barred. We just want to give them the facts, give them the truth as best we see it and as best our guest sees it. So, Gerald, welcome to the show. I'm so excited.
Well, I'm honored to be on the show. I truly am. And I thank you all so much for what you've been doing all these years and how much you've been giving to the people. So thank you so much.
So Gerald, give our audience who may not know your background a quick overview and how long you've been in this trends thing for a long time.
Yeah,
right?
my overview is at a graduate school, I worked on political campaigns in Yonkers, New York for the mayor, Angelo Martinelli. He became the longest running mayor of Yonkers. It's a city of like 300,000 people. And then I worked on district attorney and state senators campaigns. And then they sent me up to Albany. And at 26, I was the assistant to the secretary of the New York State Senate. That's the guy running the whole show. And I got to see firsthand what was going on. And it was the worst job I've ever had in my career, watching grown men grovel to suck their way up to the top without going into a lot of details. And I quit after 1 year, and nobody could believe I quit. And I went on to design and instruct American politics and campaign technology at St. John's University, how to run campaigns. And then I became the chief government affairs specialist for the chemical industry, a big trade association of the chemical industry. And I was killing environmental legislation at 28 years old back in the 70s, staying at the Willard Hotel and putting my meetings on at the Hay Adams. And I started to grow up. I became the number 2 guy running the organization. At 30, I have pictures of me and Ronald Reagan. I picked him up at the Chicago Hilton 2 days before he announced he was running against Gerald Ford in 1976, put on a brunch with him and board of directors, stayed in touch with Mike Deaver for years. And I've been with presidents, prime ministers, and princes, so I got to see the other side. And what happened was, back in the late 70s, when the Iranian conflict started to heat up, and Jimmy Carter came back from visiting the Shah, he and Rosalind and his wife, the Shah and his wife, and came back on New Year's Day and said that the Shah was the island of stability in the Middle East. In the Bronx, we used to have a saying, bullshit has its own sound. I knew this thing was real. People weren't following how Kermit Roosevelt, Theodore Roosevelt's great-grandson, and the CIA and the MI6 of the UK overthrew the democratically elected governor Mossadegh in 1953 because Mossadegh had the nerve to nationalize the oil and say it didn't belong to Anglo-Iranian oil, better known today as BP, and Standard Oil, better known today as ExxonMobil. So they overthrew the government. They brought in the Savak, the secret police, brought the Shah in. And the Savak, if you read about this as it was going on over the years, they made the SS look good. So when the revolution happened, I knew it was real. And again, that's when I became a political atheist. I look at things the way they are, not the way I want them to be. So I started to play. I said, what are going to be the implications of this? So I started playing the gold and oil futures markets. And very few people were playing them back then. And I parlayed a $5,000 bet into almost $750,000. And I quit my job. And I started to grow up and looking at things differently. But I wouldn't know what I know if I wasn't on the other side. And so that's how I got started. And by the way, of that $750,000, I lost most of it, gambling. But I learned about it. And then I built from there. And that's how I started the Trends Research Institute in 1980.
You've been at it a long time. Any comments, Kim?
Yeah, well, so Gerald, with the trends, and I just want to jump into what's happening now. The economy, they say, oh, it's coming back, it's getting better, everything's going to be good again. I don't think you think so.
Well, let's go back a year ago. And let's go back to last August. Let's go back to last June. Listen to everybody. Oh, it'll come back. Mm-hmm. Oh, it'll come back. It didn't come back. And now you're looking what's going on. Look at the commercial real estate sector. It's going down and it's going to die in so many places. New York is dead at night. Dead. My buddies play, music down in the city. You know what time they finish playing? 10:30 at night. 10:30 at night. When I was a young guy, we used to go out 1 a.m. 10:30 at night. Okay. Who are the companies that are demanding that their workers get vaccinated and come back to work? Oh, J.P. Morgan Chase, Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs. Oh, I wonder why. Oh, you mean because they're invested very heavily in commercial real estate? And they're also holding a lot of loans. And you're looking at an office occupancy rate in the United States at best around 40%. Jeez. You're looking at New York, maybe it's 24%. Now you have people, they don't want to go back to work. Do you think they want to commute an hour and a half on the LIE each way? And now I got 7 stories. I'm renting out 7 stories if I'm in a business, and I'm paying all that rent. And I say, listen, stay home. I only need 3 stories. Before this happened in New York City, from the west side, from the village, West Village up to Fifth Avenue, Madison Avenue, for rent in 2019. The commercial real estate sectors are going to crash in Boston, in Atlanta, in San Francisco, in Los Angeles, in big cities. This thing's going down big and hard. And now with the COVID war, with the Delta variant out there, people are freaked out. I see people walking down the streets. We had, that hurricane came, pouring rain with an umbrella. No one around them with masks on. So they're not going out. Look what's going on in the hospitality sector. Look what's going on in the restaurant sector. Look what's going on in tourism and travel around the world. It's going down the toilet. So it's not coming back. Look what's going on. The facts are there. And they're scaring people more and more, and it's going to have a very negative implication on the global economy.
Okay, so now can I add one more twist to our discussion? Because, Kim and I are heavily invested in real estate, and we love real estate. We're doing very well in it because we could see this coming. They say the bird of death is the sky. When we see those cranes in the sky, it's the bird is going to die. I remember around 2008, just before 2008, there were cranes all over the skies of New York. And there were huge condo projects and all this. You go, it's coming down. But the other thing he talked about was the Shah. And the Shah was terrified of the Marxists. And he got taken down. So you see Afghanistan go down now. So how is this all, and you have COVID. So how is this in your mind as with the Trends Journal? How do you see this all playing? You got COVID, you got commercial real estate, you got debt out through the roof. And then you have Afghanistan going down. Because I'm a Vietnam veteran, and I remember 1975 when the T-34 Russian tank rolled through the Saigon. the American embassy in Saigon. So here we are, deja vu all over again. How does this all fit together in your mind?
There's a movie that they did about me. It's only 15 minutes. This woman, Doris Roberts, who used to play the mother on this TV series, Everyone Loves Raymond. And the name of the movie is Zizzy and Honey Boy. And it's about one of my books. This is the book, Zizzy and Honey Boy. And Zizzy is the Neapolitan dialect for auntie. And there's the clip. You could see it. You go to YouTube, put Zizzy and Honey Boy movie clip. And the clip is a 30-second clip of me on the phone talking to one of the guys in the studio. And I say, you tell them I said we're going to lose the Afghan war. I got blackballed from the media. I used to be on Oprah, the Today Show, Good Morning America. I used to be on everybody, a lot. I used to be on CNN like 3 times a month. USA Today used to run my top trends all the time. I used to be on, when it was a big paper, I'd be on like 3 days a week. It was almost embarrassing. I got blackballed. I said, if Alexander the Great couldn't pull it off, if the Russians couldn't pull it off, Into the Valley of Death, Road to 600, if the Russians couldn't pull it off, we're going to lose this thing. And you know what George Bush said? You're either with us or with the terrorists. There are 4 things is the way I see it. And again, the motto of the Trends Journal magazine is think for yourself. You got the banksters running the show. That's one club. There was this guy, they say, Jesus Christ, he drove the money changers out of the temple, made a whip, became violent. Poof, on the cross 3 days later. The drug dealers that people call Big Pharma, and the military-industrial complex that Dwight D. Eisenhower, 5-star general, supreme commander of the Allied forces, 2-term president, warns in his January 17th, 1961 farewell address that the military-industrial complex is robbing the nation of the genius scientists, sweat of the labors, and the future of the children, and big tech. So putting the whole story together, the bigs have taken over everything. My parents' generation and my grandparents, may they rest in peace, America was the land of opportunity. No longer. Hey, they're too big to fail. You're just a piece of garbage. You're not an essential business. Hey, but Walmart's is. It's one after another. You have no right to say anything without my approval. I'm big tech. There was this thing called the Declaration of Independence, and they talked about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Liberty? You have none. I'm the governor. I'm the mayor. I'll tell you what to do. Here's my mandate. Happiness? Man, they never talk about that word anymore. Everybody's so uptight. So where's America going? It's going down. When the virus broke out, our magazine cover, it broke out on Lunar New Year 2020. Chinese Lunar New Year. The year of the rat. Our cover was coronavirus, 106 dead in China. Our next line was 1.4 billion still alive. What are you telling me this for? I'll tell you why. Because they couldn't stop the Hong Kong protests. I used to be on Hong Kong radio in 2019 continually on TV. And I'm talking to the guys, between breaks. We're going to keep fighting, Mr. Salenti. They're not going to stop us. 7.5 million people. 7.5 million people in Hong Kong. 1 million were taking to the streets. You can't get 1 million people in America out of 332 million to do anything. What happened? The virus broke out. Security law enacted. Protests are over. China in charge. And the world became Chinese.
Amen. So we need to take a break, but when we come back, we'll have more. We're talking with Gerald Celente, what's going on in the world. Gerald Celente is a founder director of the Trends Research Institute, and he has several books, Trend Tracking and Trends 2000. And as they say in the world of investing, the trend is your friend.
And I just want to add, too, when we come back, Gerald, I want to you speak out a lot, and you're doing a lot to wake people up. We're doing our best as well. So when we come back to, I want to talk about what can somebody do, and is there something people can do to start turning this thing around? That's what I'd like to talk about when we come back.
When we come back, we're with Gerald Celente. He's been a friend. I mean, I've followed Gerald for years because as an investor, the trend is your friend. We'll be right back. Welcome back, Robert Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad Radio Show. Good news and bad news about money. Today we have a very special guest. He has a lot of admirers here at the Rich Dad Company. I've been a follower of his for years. It's Gerald Celente. He's a founding director of the Trends Research Institute and publisher of the weekly Trends Journal. I want you to show a copy of it, Gerald, okay? Because it's always an interesting piece of work here. And you can listen to the Rich Dad Radio anytime, anywhere on iTunes or Android and YouTube. And please leave a comment whenever you wish. All of our programs are archived at Rich Dad Radio. We archive them because we don't sell anything. We're basically an information, education type of company. And the reason we archive the Rich Dad Radio Show is if you listen to this program again, you'll learn twice as much because repetition is how we learn. But more importantly, if you have friends, family, or business associates, listen to this and discuss it because then your retention and your IQ and your view of the world will increase. So again, it's Gerald Celente. Any comments, Kim, before we bring Gerald back on?
I'm excited to continue talking with him. And I just want to ask Gerald, right now, small businesses are in dire straits. Middle class is getting wiped out. Is there something, where do we go from here? Can this be somehow turned around? What can people do to counteract all of the loss of our freedoms, the loss of our liberties, all the mandates and the restrictions? And I mean, Robert and I used to travel all the world. We'd be on planes all the time internationally. We'd take trips every month. I haven't been international for a year and a half now. So is there anything people can do, or what should we be doing in order to turn this around?
The first thing I really believe is that you have to get in the best shape you can, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And I mean that with all my heart. The first book I worked on back in 1986, when people weren't even talking about this stuff, was Natural Healing. It was a Warner book, Dr. Jack Saltinoff. And it's changed my life. I started, they don't mention a word, the prostitute media, or the politicians, about you want to beat the COVID, get in good health. Who's dying from it? Who are the most 2.6 pre-existing comorbidities? Type 2 diabetics, obesity, respiratory ailments. These are facts, CDC facts. 42% of Americans are obese. 70% are overweight. So to get into the fighting shape, you have to get into the best shape you can. That's the beginning. Number two, it does not take a majority to prevail, but rather an irate, tireless minority keen on setting brush fires of freedom in the minds of men, said Samuel Adams. When the American Revolution happened, we're only looking at about 3 to 5% of the people that supported it? At the height of it, less than 50%? We have to unite under one umbrella, as I see it. I don't know how to do it. One of the concepts I came up with, and it's done now, is I started a church, the Universal Church of Freedom, Peace, and Justice, because of the power of what a church can do. And this is any religion you believe in if your God believes in freedom, peace, and justice. I don't know if that's the answer, but I do know this, that we have to unite under one umbrella. And there's never been a better time than this. But it's not happening in America. Look at the protests going on in France, going on 7 weeks, on average almost 500,000 people, if you look at the other data other than the mainstream. And what do you have going on in America? Very small protests. I had rallies up here in Kingston. I had Judge Napolitano, Lynette Zhang. She was great. They came up. I'm doing what I can, but we have to unite. Again, I've been there on the other side in the political world. And without being disrespectful, and I don't want to use the proper language, but again, as a guy from the Bronx, and also I used to teach close combat for many years, when you call these politicians out man to man, person to person, they don't know whether to piss or shit. They fold like that. They're only tough when they have their little boys and girls around them, their guards and security. If the people unite and say, I had enough of your crap, we're not taking it anymore. You are a public servant. You do what we do. You will not mandate us. This is against the Constitution. It is against the Bill of Rights. If we did that in force, we would win. And the best example I can give is the bringing down of the Berlin Wall. How did it come down? People came to the wall. They didn't leave. More people came. They didn't leave. More came. They didn't leave. More came. They didn't leave. More came. They didn't leave. And the wall came down. All of a sudden, these cuffed guys in their military drag weren't shooting at the people anymore because they're outnumbered 80,000 to 1. So that's the way I see to win it, is we have to unite, and we can't stop. We cannot stop.
Amen. Amen. So look, we're getting short on time with we want to talk about inflation. Like I said, some people say it's going up and some people say it's coming down. So what is your point of view there, Gerald?
If prices come down, inflation is still going to go up because they're devaluing all the currencies. Look what's going on with the euro now. It's collapsing again. Oh, the European zone's doing better. I see inflation continuing to go up because I call it dragflation. The economy is going to go down. Currencies are going to go down, but inflation is going to go up because it's going to cost you more to buy things, just like you're living in Venezuela. And that's what's going on everywhere. Look what they cannot raise interest rates without destroying the economy. We heard that Fed guy Bullard come out last week saying, oh, they're going to be raising interest rates by March of 2022. Oh, you got the exact date, huh? Yeah, they raise interest rates. What happens to that $30 trillion worth of debt? Oh, you have to pay more on that, huh? What happens to all that cheap money that you've been pumping into the markets to artificially prop them up? The real estate markets to artificially prop them up. What's going to happen? What's going to happen when you got to pump more money in to stop everything from going down because it's going to go down, and you raise interest rates? They're not going to. I thought they were going to raise interest rates. I don't see them doing that because of what it's going to cost to service the debt and what it will do to crash the markets. As you well know, look at the merger and acquisition activity that's going on. Look at everybody buying up everything with all this cheap money. And then how are they going to pay back the debt, especially when interest rates go up? So I don't see interest rates going up, and I see inflation continuing to rise.
So in the trend, what trend do you see tracking here? Because, I agree, I agree with the facts and what's happening here, but it's going to come to an end.
What does it end? They make up crap. They didn't teach me about in Economics 101 about quantitative easing and zero and negative interest rate policy. They make this stuff up. They're psychopaths, sociopaths, pathological liars. What new scheme will they come up? That's the answer. Will they be able to come up with a new scheme? And by the way, you mentioned it before, Janet Yellen. Here we have the head of the bankster gang as our Treasury Secretary.
I agree.
Are you kidding me? That is how fraudulent this whole thing is. That we have the bankster gang as our Treasury. So, yes, it has to collapse. And I'm still bullish on gold and silver. And I believe there's still a market for cryptocurrencies until they crack down and stop it. Because they're going to all go digital like they're doing in China already with the yuan. The tests keep going out. So they know every penny you spent, where you spent it, how you spent it, what you spent it on, so they could get the money in the name of taxes.
Well, the Fed coin is another surveillance capitalism. They're going to keep track of everything you do. I'm terrified. My friend, I think he has Siri or Alexa in his house. I'm going, they're listening to everything you're saying. No, I don't care. Do you know what I mean? Anyway, any comments, Kim?
Yeah, Gerald, when you talk about, what's the next scheme that they're gonna come up with, because when we're talking to other economists, they're like, well, if you go along these paths, but they can just change the rules and they can just keep printing money. How long can they keep printing money, and how long can they keep propping things up until it does collapse?
Again, it should collapse already. I mean, the equity markets went up during the lockdowns. Here's my greatest fear. When all else fails, they take you to war. There was this guy by the name of George W. Bush, a little daddy's boy, a little nothing of a clown that became president. That's all these guys are. Little true dope up there, daddy's boy in Canada. The clown we had in New York over here, Cuomo, daddy's boy. George Carlin, you say it's one big club and you ain't in it. Go back to 2000. And again, we forecasted it in Trends Journal in October 1999, the dot-com bust. The dot-com busts happened in March of 2000. We're in a deep recession going into 2001 when Bush is in office. Remember the hanging chads in Florida? Oh, yeah. Anyway, his popularity ratings going down the toilet. All of a sudden, 9/11, the Afghan war, which 88% of Americans supported. Bush's popularity rating goes up, and the whole new scheme began. Robert, you were talking about all those cranes in New York City in 2007 and 2008. And by the way, those cranes are still up there now. They're still building away because these projects were underway before this happened.
Right.
So when all else fails, they take you to war. These are psychopaths, sociopaths, pathological liars that, as Dwight D. Eisenhower said, anyone that seeks the office of president is either an egomaniac or crazy. You can look that quote up.
Yeah. So before we end, I'll go back to something you said. This COVID, see what happened was I was writing a book called The Infinite Return, and then on September 17, 2019, the repo market blew up. And then COVID appeared. And then you're saying that COVID appeared also to quell the riots in Hong Kong? Is that how you're saying it? Or
yeah.
Is it basically, I flew for the Marine Corps. We were taught ABC, atomic, biological, chemical warfare.
There you
so
go.
is COVID B, biological warfare?
Yes. Look at the power trip that these people are on, that they've taken control of. I mean, look, they locked down Australia. 25 million people. How many deaths? Under 1,000 over 17 months. 86 people died this year out of 25 million. What are you locking it down for? They're power trips and they're working for big. The vaccination rates are only around 20%. Same thing with New Zealand, under 20%. New Zealand had a handful of deaths.
They're saying that they're putting the narrative out that it's 50%.
Of what?
The media is saying 50% of people are vaccinated.
Oh no, not in Australia or New Zealand.
Yeah.
So
No,
Joe, are you trying to? I never heard this part. Are you saying? I was watching those Hong Kong riots, but you're saying, was that part of the reason that COVID appeared?
I believe so. They could not stop them. They could not. I wrote about it every week. Again, I'm on Hong Kong TV. The people would not stop it. It stopped like that. Oh, and by the way, one of our top trends of 2021, because we do them in December before this happened in 2020, was New World Disorder. There were protests going on in South Africa, Lebanon, France, Algeria, Colombia, Chile, Bolivia, Peru, India, all over the world. Poverty, lack of basic living standards, violence, government corruption, and crime. They couldn't stop these. Every week, people, boom, COVID comes, no more protests. It's over. It's over.
So your suspicion is it's related to keeping civil unrest down?
No, it's to keep the maniacs in charge that are robbing the people of their rights in charge. And they suck up and bow down to the people that pay them off, that morons and imbeciles call campaign contributions. The United States and New Zealand are the only two countries that allow drug ads on TV. New Zealand has the death rate is next to nothing. And now they're locking it down. They work for the drug dealers. Again, people call it big pharma. Look at how the FDA just allegedly approved the virus drug, right? Who was the head of the FDA under the Trump administration? Oh, by a guy by the name of Scott Gottlieb. Hey, where's Scotty now? Oh, he's on the board of directors of Pfizer. What am I, 6 years old? Who the hell are you talking to? You got the guy that's running the FDA on the board of directors of Pfizer? Grow up. It's not a revolving door. It's one big club, as George Carlin said, and you ain't in it.
So Gerald, with that said, could you give a commercial message or plug about your Trends Journal, what it costs, and how often it comes out? And I think it's one of the most important subscriptions a person can take right now.
Thank you. Yeah, we give our heart and soul into it. Last week was 162 pages. What in the world is going on, what it means, what's next, geopolitical, economic, high-tech science, on, for the grand total of $2 a week. You know, it's $129 a year. And again, I'm not saying it because it's my magazine. If anybody could show me anything that comes close to it, you know, show me. But if you want to prepare and prevail and prosper in the times ahead, that's what the magazine is all about. Trendsjournal.com. We give our heart and soul to make it the best it can be.
Yeah, and your website also is trendsresearch.com.
Yes.
So, I mean, any way you can, ladies and gentlemen, please, listen to Gerald Celente. At least you have a glimpse as to what's coming down the road before it runs over you. Anyway, Gerald, thank you very much. Any final words, Kim?
Thank you. I'm honored to be on your show. Thank you so much. I admire you both so much. Thank you.
Yeah, well,
I appreciate it, and I like your points about you got to get in shape. You got to get physical shape, emotional shape, spiritual shape, because there is definitely a fight coming. And I thank you, Gerald, for keeping that fight going, and we're going to do our best as well.
Thank you.
So thank you. So we come back. We're going to final wrap up with our producer, Sarah. So Gerald, thank you very much. Keep up the fight, man. Keep up the fight.
Thank you.
Welcome back. Robert Kiyosaki, The Rich Dad Radio Show, the good news and bad news about money. I'm very happy to have Gerald Celente on. I followed him for years and years and years. His Trends Journal is like the Bible. I mean, just remember, the trend is your friend. And as he said, when we're off air, he says he's very sad. I'm very sad. Kim's very sad. At the same time, we can fight back. And we fight back with knowledge and information, because this is not a time to just roll over. So you can listen to the Rich Dad Radio program anytime, anywhere on iTunes, Android, and YouTube. And just leave us a comment. And all of our programs are archived at richdadradio.com. We archive them so you can listen to this again, so you can pick up more. But more importantly, share this with friends, family, and business associates and discuss this. These are very, very uncertain times. And so the more you can see the future with the trends, it's a very important time to get educated. Any comments, Kim?
Yeah, one of the things that Gerald said that that we both embrace is to think for yourself. And I can't understand why people are just blindly going along, not questioning, just following all these mandates and not questioning, not wondering why, and not connecting the dots. How come countries are locked down with very few deaths? We'll look at the statistics, look at the trends, get the Trends Journal, go to trendsjournal.com. Gerald's newsletter, because there's so many facts out there, and people are running on emotion and opinions, but not facts. So I love that. Think for yourself and get the facts.
Yeah, and we're not saying to agree with Gerald, but at least he's looking into the future, and I think we should all do that. Look into the future. The trend is your friend, but it could also be the truck that runs you over if you're not watching. So, Sarah, what's your point of view on all this?
We're talking about, so many people are not fighting back, but I have to say, I feel a little rumble happening kind of underneath the ground or something. I feel like the more people like Gerald and us that speak out against what's really happening and try to educate people. I do feel some kind of vibration happening that maybe more people will wake up. And that's all I'm hopeful for, because I'm glad we brought up Australia during the show. It's unbelievable what they're doing in Australia. And the worst part is Australia's citizens are not armed. So they have no way of fighting back should it take a turn for the worse. But I just, so it's a very sad situation, but I'm just hoping shows like this and people, start waking up.
And so, Kim, you're getting pretty political because last night you were at Carrie Lake's event. What do you sense? Because we've never really been political.
Never. I've never been political. And I now it's gotten to a point where that you have to do something. And as a gentleman said that we were watching the other day, he said, don't wait until next month. Don't wait until next month to do something. Do something now, because next month may be too late. So we've got a strong governor candidate here who's fighting hard. She's fighting against the border crisis. She's fighting against all these mandates. She's fighting for freedoms and liberties. And she's outspoken and she's very savvy. And so I'm supporting her big time any way I can. So we had to get together last night, just about 20 of us talking about what we can do, how we can move forward, because I'll go out fighting. This is, as Gerald said, it's breaking his heart. It's breaking my heart too. It's seeing what's happening to this country and to the world.
Right. I think her name is Carrie Lake, Karilake, and she caught my attention when she's a newscaster. She's a very famous newscaster. And when they tried to put words in her mouth, she quit. And all of a sudden I went, that's my kind of person.
Yes.
She
was 27. She was 27 years as a news anchor in Arizona. And she said, they want me to give misinformation. They don't want me to fact check anything. They want me to basically lie to the American people. And I'm not going to do that. And she quit after 27 years. And then she got very vocal. Yeah.
And so, Kim backs her up. I was at another campaign thing last night. Again, we're not political, but we're getting political. Doug Ducey is our governor. He's a good friend of ours he was Cold Stone Creamery and all that, the franchise. And he says, why don't you get political? I said, because I don't care. But now we're getting political.
Now we care.
So last night I had drinks with an attorney who's running for attorney general. And so we're working on a campaign slogan for him because he wants money. I said, when you put what I think needs to be put onto paper, maybe I'll give you money, because I'm not going to just give money to people who are just going to jack their jaws and spend money and have champagne and all that stuff they do. So he's come up with a campaign slogan that says, as Attorney General, I will protect you from our government. I said, that'll get attention. Because if you don't make bold statements like that, nobody listens to you. Yeah. So anyway, final word, Sarah?
Thank you for a great show. Thank you, Gerald Celente, for a great show. And he said, he stands for freedom, peace, and justice. And I think that's something we can stand behind. So just appreciated the show.
Right. So thank you for listening to the Rich Dad Radio Show, and we'll text you on the block next time. Bye.
Thôi mong chờ, vậy sao bật khóc trong ngu ngơ. Vẫn thế đây bao lâu nay em không hay, chỉ một mình anh ngồi khóc. Nước mắt đây riêng nơi đây em không hay, sự thật là anh nhớ em. Người giờ đã xa, lời hẹn ước đâu rồi. Nước mắt đây rơi biết bao lâu thì khô. Vẫn thế đây bao đêm say em không hay, từng giọt buồn sao mặn đắng. Nhưng lúc ấy anh loay hoay trong cơn say, lại nhầm rằng em ở đây. Người giờ đổi thay, tình mình vẫn đong đầy. Thế mới biết anh vẫn yêu em, thì sao tìm quên chốn xưa ngày ta quen.